Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show on a Sunday night, too, at 7:30 Eastern Time on the 10th of October, 2021. The Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, where they're getting ready for winter time. Salt is front and center for those of you who are in the snow removal business. You know about all the shortages with everything else you have to deal with getting parts for your trucks and so on. Well, salt's a problem too, but Omni's got it, and they have the lowest prices in the tri-state area. They also have plenty of Pelleto and Mag ice pellets and flakes and everything else you need to get through the winter. 631-756-1125 is the phone number. The website is omnitruevalue.com. Wholesale holiday lighting by Giannini, your complete holiday lighting specialist to meet all your decorating needs as Halloween approaches rapidly and Christmas follows after that. And they've got everything you need if you're in this business of decorating other people's homes, or maybe you want to get into this business. Give them a call at 631-957-5106. They're at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, New York, right next door to Omni, practically. And the website is liholidaylighting.com. So here we are on a Sunday night. I know you've already told everybody on the chat board, and you told me you're cutting out early because you've got a really important television show to watch, and I certainly can't blame you. I want you to know that I know the show well because I watched it too.
Yeah, well, my son and I, we used to watch it a lot when it was on Nickelodeon when he was much younger. And it's going to be on the CW Pix 11 tonight here in New York at 8 o'clock. And interestingly now, it has apparently been upgraded. No more kids. It's basically a competition among adults. And I, the two of us are saying like, well, we've got to watch this now to see how this all turns out. So we'll be watching tonight. And it was an interesting show. At the end, there were two kids. The team, the Silver Snakes, for example, or whatever they were called, they'd have to work their way through this maze in 3 minutes. And if they were able to get the object in question, like let's say Galileo's cannonball or Davy Crockett's cap or whatever, and come back out inside of 3 minutes, they'd win a lot of prizes, or even a trip like to Mexico or some tropical island or whatever. So it'll be interesting to watch and see how they've upgraded this show tonight. And it's a way of bonding, I guess, Thinking back to when my son was like 10 or 11 years old and we used to watch this show. And now here we are like 20 years later. So we'll sit back. Well, I mean, what else is on at 8 o'clock on a Sunday night, Joe? There's nothing.
Well,
really
I'm just finishing up watching The Lion in Winter on Turner Classic Movies. I don't even know what's on next. So yeah, there's not a whole lot of television out there. Unless you're watching Squid Games. I don't know if you've heard about this Korean show on Netflix, Squid Games. That is all the rage. It's kind of the theme of trying to get out there and win a competition. In Squid Games, if you lose, you die, and you die in not exactly a pretty way. So I haven't seen any of it yet. It's sort of not my thing. Meanwhile, I want you to know, Joe, we had I know you were in gloom and doom all day, as was a good chunk of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states. I, on the other hand, had a good deal of sun. I had beautiful blue skies, sunshine, low humidity, temperatures in the 70s. So I went today to the Sorghum Festival, okay? A festival dedicated to a food additive, I want you to know. And, of course, I came away with, I'm going to show everybody, I actually think this is kind of cool. This is, Joe, you should be able to see it on your screen soon, if you can't yet. This is a birdhouse made out of discarded license plates. Look at this. And they had most every state. They had the People's Republic of the State of New York and the People's Republic of the State of New Jersey. I saw it. I thought this was really cool. Actually, in Georgia, they have all these different license plates for all these different themes, including give wildlife a chance, so that some money goes donated to them. And the bird on here is a whippoorwill. whippoorwill. Anyway, I thought this was really cool. So free promo for the guy the people I got it from. Mike's Birdhouses. Okay, in case you want your own license plate birdhouse. The only thing they said is make sure you hang this in the shade because it is made of
Oh,
steel. If you
yes.
hang it in the sun, you're going to cook them. It's
Yeah.
the phone number is 404 213 4136. That's 404 213 4136. Murray Hill 59099. Out of town, please call collect. No, don't call collect. Don't call collect. All right, so let's work this through in the next 24 minutes and gloom and doom for you. Beautiful weather here for me. We have a severe weather outbreak in Oklahoma going on with a moderate risk and a tornado watch at work. And it looks like we've got one more week here in the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic states where we're going to hold on to this ridge. But things are changing. The pattern in the Pacific is changing. The pattern in the Atlantic is not changing so much, but that's really not the important part of this equation. It's the Pacific that's changing. So looks like at least weather systems are going to start moving from west to east again. But you got all of this week to get through, which after tomorrow, I think is going to probably be a relatively warm one, especially the latter part of the week.
Tomorrow will be another. I'm not going to say tomorrow is going to be gloom and doom, but from looking at the maps quickly here, it would appear that the clouds are definitely going to have the upper hand on Columbus Day. Maybe toward the latter part of the day, we'll see more in the way of sunshine burning through, and we might actually have a clear night tomorrow night for a little while. But then the clouds look like they're going to be returning, Joe, on Tuesday. Probably more clouds than sun. Wednesday looks like kind of a partly sunny, partly cloudy day. Thursday. And the interesting thing is, we're not going to see much of any precipitation for much of this week. The clouds will be around, but the precip chances will be relatively low, I think, right on through Friday and on into the start of the upcoming weekend.
Yeah, precip really doesn't look all that much. Let's jump to the radar right now, and we had this low that was trying to form off the North Carolina coast, and it really had just a very limited window of opportunity that lasted into this morning before the upper air winds were going to change enough so that you weren't going to see this develop into any kind of tropical or even subtropical system, and that has indeed happened now. It was funny watching the loop today. There was one arm of rain. This rain area was moving up. It started to shift to the east. There was a narrow arm of rain that kind of backed westward. Kind of back westward. It did back westward across New Jersey, New York City, and maybe up by you, and then disintegrated as it moved further to the west. But otherwise, in this gloom and doom, there really wasn't a whole lot of precip that fell out of this.
Yeah, well, we had a little bit coming our way during the early afternoon. I say we, my wife and I were in the midst of getting rid of, and I mentioned this on Friday, we have a huge pile of mulch. The folks over at Omni asked, got mulch? Well, yes, Omni, we do got mulch. The mulch pile that I have, which extends partway onto my driveway, is was roughly 12 feet in diameter and about 4 feet high. We have reduced that by roughly 1/3, Joe, over the last couple of days. Just digging, tossing the mulch into a wheelbarrow, and then moving it over and dumping it on parts of my lawn that we want to convert to just a whole area of mulch instead of just dry grass. Any case, along about 1 o'clock this afternoon, or 1:30, all of a sudden it started to rain lightly, but it started to rain, and that pretty much ended our mulch digging for the remainder of the afternoon. It wasn't really anything heavy. I think on our rain gauge we picked up all of 1 or 2/100ths of an inch of rain, but it was coming down steadily, and we figured, well, what the heck? And as you mentioned, the sky looking gray, ominous, a gloom and doom type of appearance, and that's how pretty much it is right now. Very cloudy, no precipitation falling, but I guess you could say that that system, that semi-tropical or the attempt at becoming a tropical system, never really got going, and most of the heavier rain stayed pretty much out to sea to our south and east.
All right, we've got some severe weather going on in parts of northern Texas and and Oklahoma. The tornado HQ at the moment, 2 severe thunderstorm warnings and a tornado warning. I just want to take a look at this tornado warning. This is in Oklahoma for Caddo and Kiowa counties. This is as of 7:41 Eastern time, and this tornado warning has 19 minutes to go. The severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado 9 miles east of Cooperton, moving east-northeast at 45 miles an hour. We've got a couple of others, with the severe thunderstorm warnings. There have been some expired tornado warnings from about an hour or so ago in Oklahoma, and also one up in Minnesota, in Cook County, Minnesota. They had a tornado warning there. And you can see on the radar, there's a nice, healthy-looking squall line here. It's mostly west of Oklahoma City, and then running southward down to west of Wichita Falls, Texas, and continuing southward from there. And it's moving. The cells are moving northeastward. The line is moving slowly eastward, and this low is headed up toward that's doing all this, headed up toward the western Great Lakes. The front with this is not even going to make it to the East Coast. It's going to completely fall apart because we got that ridge and it's holding. Meanwhile, you also see some severe weather up in northern Minnesota, moving on to the Canadian side. There's some showers over in Michigan. In the east, it's virtually dry up and down the eastern seaboard, with the exception of whatever's going on under the low clouds. If there's some light rain or drizzle that the radar's not picking up in parts of from eastern PA to southern New England and points southward down the Delmarva Peninsula, but go further south into the southeast and down to Florida, there is nothing there. And we've got some precip moving into the Pacific Northwest and up into the northern Rockies. The Storm Prediction Center, moderate risk tonight in Oklahoma. And there's a working tornado watch that extends from I don't even know how to, it's north central Texas and then on up into the western part of Oklahoma. There probably will maybe be an additional watch that may go up later on. And the folks at SPC for tomorrow, you'll notice nothing on the eastern seaboard of consequence, really. A slight risk of severe weather from eastern Missouri northeastward up through the Great Lakes, including Chicago and Milwaukee. And the marginal risk extends a little bit further south into northern Mississippi. On to the next day, which is Tuesday into Wednesday. Now here comes the next weather system, and we've got enhanced risk of severe weather from southern Nebraska down and through Kansas and western Oklahoma. And, not too shabby, Joe, to see an enhanced risk already showing up on day 3. And that cold front will make it to the East Coast either late Friday or maybe on Saturday. It's going to take a while for it to push to the east in a much weaker state, by the way.
Right. It seems like a lot of the weather disturbances that are approaching for our area for this week seem to run out of gas, if you will, or seems to run out of energy and really doesn't pose much of a threat at all for this upcoming week, which is why it looks like this week is going to be basically high and dry for much of our area. Again, I would like to see clearer skies and brighter skies and more in the way of sunshine. I think we're going to be seeing clouds in one way, shape, or form linger for a good part of the week, but not to say that we won't see the sun from time to time and place to place. But it doesn't look, Joe, like we're going to have any kind of threat of any significant precipitation, let's say more than a trace of precip, until maybe a week from now on Sunday of next week. So till then, it looks like it's going to be pretty dry.
Happy anniversary to Mary and Chuck Cardillo, by the way. 23 years married today. A happy anniversary to both of you.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary. Yes. Okay, so here's our satellite, and you can see the mess that's off the East Coast, well off the East Coast from the southeast. But the onshore flow, which turned more southeast on yesterday, on Saturday, started the ball rolling, which is the reason why we're in doom and gloom. And really, it's not like we're getting a cold front to sweep all of this out of here. And you make a good point about the fact that we're going to be struggling with some of this for at least a couple of days. Although I would think that after tomorrow, even if it's one of these deals where there's low clouds and an overcast in the morning hours, I would think we'll break out into some sunshine because of the fact that we're under this ridge position here. But the onshore flow just strengthened enough, and while the brighter white clouds are taking all the significant moisture out, the low level moisture is going to be difficult to dislodge. And there's your system blowing up in the southern plains. That's actually a nice little shortwave that's moving across northern Texas, northwest Texas, and into Oklahoma. Again, lifting up to the western lakes, and you also can see some of the energy that's coming in to the Pacific Northwest. And WPC over the next 7 days on their forecast, which takes us to a week from today, a week from this evening, the rainfall amounts less than a quarter down to a tenth of an inch in most places from Maryland and the Delmarva Peninsula up the coastal plain to southern New England, even less in the Carolinas down into Georgia and northern Florida. The big winners are in the southern and central plains, several inches of rain from Texas, from central Texas, northeastward through Oklahoma and into northern Missouri. Rainfall also on the order of 3/4 of an inch to 1.25 inches across the Great Lakes. Bigger rains in the Dakotas and back over to parts of Wyoming. Some of this is going to be in the form of snow as we get into the Rockies. We'll take a look at that in a moment. And right along the coastal part of the Pacific Northwest, where it could be problematic. Chuck Cardillo hitting Super Chat tonight. Thank you, Chuck. Happy anniversary. Enjoy yourself and have a good time, both of you and your lovely wife. On this very, very sacred day for you.
I wish there wasn't any possibility of us getting cut off or getting into trouble because of copyright infringement. But if you go to YouTube and you click on Flintstones/anniversary, you will see in several different spots the famous song that we were just singing together. That came from one of the early episodes of the Flintstones when Fred bought his wife a piano and then woke her up in the middle of the night. And he and Barney and several policemen, I think they thought that Fred was the perpetrator of stealing the piano. I think they mixed him up with 88 Fingers Louie. But anyway, they all sing the happy anniversary, and there are actually words to this song. I don't know off the top of my head what the actual words are, but again, if you go on YouTube and go to Flintstones/anniversary, you can listen to the tune yourself, and you can make believe that the song is being sung just for you guys, Chuck, and your lovely wife.
Let's look at the teleconnections, shall we? As we.
By the way, Joe.
Yeah.
By the way, getting back to the QPF map from WPC, I find it so ironic. Here we are. So here we are. We have the next 7 days. 6 of those 7 are likely to be bone dry here in the Northeast. But next Sunday, which is day 7 in this listing for this particular map, next Sunday, day 7, we likely are going to see, well, not likely yet. I mean, nothing is likely a week from now, but it appears that there is going to be a good chance of at least a half or 3/4 of an inch. So you see the entire eastern seaboard covered in that type of precipitation pattern. You look at that and you say, looks like it's going to be a wet week in the east. No, 6 out of 7 days dry.
Right.
It's just that one single day next Sunday.
It's back end loaded. It's back end loaded.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
And a lot of stuff what you see in the plains is front end loaded for at least the first half of the week, which is what's going on with all of this. The teleconnections, which we started to pay a little more attention to, giving us maybe sometimes can give you clues as to where we're going in the long range. And of course, we've been dealing with the NAO, the North Atlantic Oscillation, which we refer to, which also includes but doesn't always mean a Greenland block. which the winter, I'm sure the antenna of all the snow lovers just went up when I said that. But it also it means other things that encompass a very large geographic area of the North Atlantic up into the Arctic regions. It's been negative since pretty much from the second half, well, the last week of September. And now it looks like it's going to stay negative, except for a brief moment next week where it kind of gets close to the neutral. We're actually where we are now, which is right near but just under the neutral line. But then it goes negative again as we head toward after October 16th and move toward October 23rd and beyond. The one thing that's changed, though, if we look at the Pacific North America Index, which was very much deeply negative going into the month of October. Of course, this means that when it's negative, you've got generally a trough troughing in the western part of the U.S. and ridging in the eastern part of the U.S. Well, that's kind of bouncing up a little bit in sawtooth fashion, but it is now all the members of the GFS ensembles forecasted to go positive later this week and through all of next week and beyond. So we're going to be seeing that. Joe, I think that's the signal to look for as far as at least getting weather systems to move, because the PNA going positive means this ridge in the eastern part of the United States, which just has not wanted to go away, is going to start to break down.
It will. Yes.
And we can watch it. By the way, we can watch it break down on the GFS too, because I set it up from back on Thursday, and you see the general ridge position that holds in the east right through this week. Here's Monday. You'll notice the upper low that's in Oklahoma. This is producing the severe weather tonight right in here. That's moving north-northeast toward the western Great Lakes. The cold front never makes it here. It lifts up all the way to Lake Superior. And why? Because you've got this powerhouse upper low that drops down into Utah and Colorado for Monday and Tuesday. And here's your ridge in the eastern part of the United States. It just hangs in there. So it certainly doesn't get out of the way now.
Off.
Well, yeah. Yeah, and then interestingly, by the way, the models are bringing, there's a tropical, I don't know if they made it a tropical storm yet. I know it was a tropical depression this morning in the Pacific. We'll check that in a minute. But if you look down south of Baja California, it's got a wrapped up storm, tropical storm or probably a hurricane that turns north and northeastward, goes into Mexico, and actually gets picked up by this, very deep trough in the western part of the United States. This thing is not going to be going out to the west. It's actually going to recurve, and probably when you see that moisture that the WPC folks have in Texas, some of that is going to be from that tropical system. And now, of course, with the end of the week, you'll notice that we have ridging here in the east, but finally, a trough breaks through the ridge on Sunday, swinging across the Great Lakes and Northeast. And then that goes out, and then here comes the next one that dives down from Canada. This one here, Joe, for the middle part of next week, if it holds together, probably will have a decent shot of cool air behind it. I mean, the first one will have some cool air, but this might have a decent shot of cool air.
When you say the middle part of next week, you're talking about not this upcoming week, but the following week, like around the 20th of October.
Right. Beyond that. Beyond that. Here's the first trough that comes through on Sunday. The middle of next week, this upper low drops down into near Lake Superior and then swings to the east coast along about Thursday of the week of October. What is that, Monday? The 18th. And you see that moving along. Right. Look at the ridge now in the west. That's a big change here. Big change in the upper air pattern. Now, remember, folks, the West is a big place. The East is a big place. And the thing is, you could have a ridge in the West and trough in the East, but I always remind everybody that you got to always ask yourself where in the West and where in the East is this trough. And if we go a little bit wider, you'll see what I'm talking about here. We'll bring up the North America geography. It'll take just a second here to load. We're seeing now the trough off the Pacific, just rolling it back a little bit here. Let me just get a little bit further back. before the ridge pops up. Now, here's where before the ridge breaks down, you've got this mess here. Here's your negative NAO, by the way. This double-barreled high, blocking high in northeastern Canada, extending to southern Greenland. And your ridge is kind of popped up in the middle because of this crazy trough that's in the Pacific that extends from eastern Asia all the way into the southwestern part of the United States. So what changes is, instead of having that huge amorphous trough, you see this upper low that comes down from the Aleutians next Saturday and then drops down into the Gulf of Alaska around 1/5, about 140. Okay, so there is a trough, there is a trough, there's a trough. You've got a ridge in the west. You've got what's left of a ridge pulling off the east coast in between systems. So, a marked difference, but the troughs are not in positions to produce storminess in the east. You want, if you're looking for a storm in the east, you want this Pacific trough to kind of set up along 160, along the longitude of Hawaii, between 150 and 160. This is setting up more between 140 and 150, which means the mean position of the trough will probably be along or just off the east coast in the longer term. But it is a marked change in the pattern. And you can see how it. By the way, look at this model keeps wanting to, over the last several days, keeps wanting to make big cutoffs in the Gulf of Maine at the end of the forecast period. So, it'll be interesting to see. There's your NAO. I mean, this is all negative NAO stuff. The big difference is what's out in the Pacific. It's a much different pattern in the Pacific as we head toward the end of the month.
Yeah, and you say obviously from the way the models are showing or depicting that system south of Baja, that thing will develop into something significant in fact, it does. The depression has become Tropical Storm Pamela. My wife will be especially interested in that. Tropical Storm Pamela, dear. Yes, Pamela, forecast to impact a portion of the Mexican coast at midweek as a hurricane. Meanwhile, there are 3 yellow X's in the Atlantic basin, and I'm looking here. There's a 20% chance of formation. That's one that's a few hundred miles east of the Leeward Islands. There's one just south of Puerto Rico. There's only a 10% chance of formation there. And off the mid-Atlantic coast, 10% chance of a cyclone formation in 48 hours.
Yeah,
the one off the mid-Atlantic coast.
That's done.
That's a non-tropical low
pressure
done. System.
The one north of Hispaniola,
and the other two are tropical.
Right, the one north of Hispaniola, 10 and 20, and the other one is 20 and 30, saying that the upper level winds could become more conducive later in the forecast period, or marginally conducive later in the forecast period. By the way, this reminds me of one thing worthy of paying attention to. If the Atlantic tropical storm season shuts off at this point, if we don't get anything else from here on in, that may be an indicator of a winter of a colder, snowier winter to come. I had this conversation with Bill Goodman back a couple of years ago on this subject matter, and he's done a little research on it, and he says that when the hurricane season shuts off early, it's usually on the Atlantic side. It's usually a sign that the winter might rev up early. So it's not a cause and effect thing. Yeah. It's just it's in other words, it's not because we're getting colder air that's shutting it off, but the other way around. The fact that the upper level winds are causing the Atlantic hurricane season to shut down early is apparently a checkbox in the I want a cold, snowy winter column.
The only thing I would say, and we all know that Bill Goodman is an excellent synoptician, an excellent meteorologist, which is why, of course, he's over at the National Weather Service. But I would only say that if you're going to look long term at that type of a setup, it's difficult because up until about 15 or 20 years ago, we were only reaching into the F's and the G's and the H's by this particular time in the in the calendar, early October. Now, of course, in recent years, we've been going crazy. We've been seeing a lot of tropical activity extending into October. It's just that things have changed so much over the last 20 or 30 years in terms of tropical cyclones and their frequency that I think it's difficult to just put a finger on that and say, okay, that means that we might get this or we might get that or whatever. So
it's not an even thing. It just it does he did seem to find a slight correlation along those lines. Steve Lapointe hitting super chat tonight. Thank you, Stephen. Talking about weddings, anniversary, Joey says that your wife met you by bailing you out of jail, and now you have a life sentence. Very nice. So looking
Steve, if you were here right now, Steve, you'd pay for that.
You must pay the penalty.
You know the old saying, Joe, right? First engagement ring, then wedding ring, followed by suffering.
Yes. Quit while you're behind.
Ah, yes, indeed. Okay.
I'm trying to try. And Leon Probitsky also hitting super chat tonight. Thank you very much, Leon. I'm just trying to load a snowfall forecast map out in the Rockies, and it's loading now. So let's see, just to see what kind of excitement that they're going to get out there. Billings gets 4. Colors haven't all filled in yet. I'm trying to see what Denver gets here. Oh, come on. There's Casper, Wyoming. Map is trying to load. 5 in Casper. Yeah, it's all west of Denver. There's not a whole lot going on in Colorado, but Utah getting some decent snowfall here in the eastern half of the state, and then it really revs up. There's a 32 point being indicated somewhere in Wyoming. I don't know what exactly that is. There's a lot of double-digit numbers out here in Wyoming and moving up into Montana. So this is going to be, the first important snowfall of the season anywhere in the United States, really. And you can see it on the GFS here with the low that comes out of Utah, a 95 low that goes to a 92 low in northeastern Colorado. It's not a lot of snow. And of course, once the low lifts up, you see some heavier snows in eastern Montana, a very narrow band of heavy snow that develops on the west side. The low goes pretty far to the west. This is on Thursday. And then finally, we're going to get a wave that will be enough to push a cold front through here. This is Saturday evening, Joe. The GFS has a front right on the coast and moving offshore, and then improving weather conditions on Sunday. So, if it slows down by a day, it'll be Sunday. If it's a little faster, it'll be Saturday. And then it looks like it'll be a little colder and a little cooler and a little drier. And then a more important front, maybe as we head around the 20th or 21st, where we'll have let's call it a decent shot of chilly air coming down into the United States. So I'm going to just bring us back full screen because you know what? It is time for you to go.
You're right.
You got to go. So go bond with the child. So
he's going to be 31 in another week or so. So it's more than that. So
and you could have
you
could have the grandchild conversation during this hour.
Well, I'm sure the grandchild will be coming our way one of these days, but not in the immediate future, not just yet. And you're ahead of me, Joe. I've always followed you. So ever since I've known you, all these years, I've always followed you. So I'll probably be following you. Well, not probably. I will be following you again in that department somewhere down the road.
Well, my grandsons were here today, so we had a lot of fun.
Yes.
If you get an opportunity when you have grandchildren, you should bring them down to North Georgia just for the sorghum festival.
We just might do that.
Yes.
All right, 7:30 tomorrow night. Right.
All right, I'm going to stay on for just a little while longer, so we'll see you tomorrow. We'll be back. You'll be back tomorrow with me at 7:30. So go and do what you got to do, and we'll see you tomorrow. So everybody, hang on. I'm going to stay for a little bit. Mike McGuire hitting super chat asking, will Casper see feet of snow soon? Well, one of the things that's going on with this particular system, let me bring up the map again. obviously there's no Arctic air, so we're working with an upper low. So I usually call these things do-it-yourself cold air, where the cyclone, the upper air cyclone in the high levels of the atmosphere creates its own cold air and it mixes down at the surface. Plus you add the elevation angle about this in the Rockies, and you're going to get some snow. But it's also the reason why, if you notice in the Dakotas, a lot of this is in the form of heavy rain. Because of the fact that you really don't have at the moment, because of the fact that you you don't have any kind of flow in Canada that's from the northwest. Most of the flow in Canada is blowing from west to east. So as a result, it does limit the snowfall. But on the other hand, if enough cold air mixes down, you could certainly wind up with a decent amount of snowfall out of this in some places. So I'll bring back that snow map. I'm going to try to. Casper's only getting 5. I mean, you really have to go much further north into Wyoming, almost to the Montana state. I don't know what I don't know what that point is. I'm trying to zoom a little bit closer, but apparently the map is just like spinning the circle of death, and you can see it in the upper right. But you're going to have to go way north and west. There we go. Sheridan, Wyoming comes up as a point here. Let me see. Let me see if the numbers load up. 11 for Sheridan. I still can't see what that point. That's got to be some sort of elevated area. But the bigger cities are going to get less. But there are some decent double-digit amounts well west of I-25. There's a 10-inch amount along I-25 north of Casper, and then up into Sheridan, we've got 11, and you get on the Montana side. Now this goes through Wednesday night, so you might see amounts increase. When we hear at this time tomorrow, we'll probably see the maps show bigger amounts in that particular area. But I just want to, once that lifts on up, again, here comes another low. This is for Friday. So here's our front for late Saturday in a much weaker state, moves on through, cool and dry behind it. That's not a shabby high that's coming down behind it, but it's not. It's that cooler cyclonic air left over from the upper low. The next system, Tuesday of next week, that drops down into the Great Lakes. Now that's when we're starting to see that more of that troughing coming in the eastern part of the United States and more ridging in the west, so that you do have a flow out of Canada, and that brings down some colder, let's call it colder air. And then toward the end of the month, you've got this low, at least the way the GFS pictures it. Who knows if this is how real this is, but the fact that the NAO is negative and the PNA is going positive is a big change from what we've been seeing, which is the negative North Atlantic Oscillation coupled with the negative Pacific North America Index. That is a very, very important development with respect to the longer range. It can't stay. Obviously, it's not going to stay like this forever with the ridge position in the eastern part of the United States. One of the I would also start to pay with respect to the North Atlantic Oscillation in the NAO. Let's see how persistent it is. Does it last through the month of October? Does it continue through into the month of November? It might go back to the neutral line, or maybe even go a little bit positive at some point, only to drop back negative. This could be in response to some of the disruptions that are occurring in the polar vortex up in the stratosphere that Dr. Judah Cohen has been talking about. The next 4 weeks or so, even though in terms of actual practical weather, obviously it's way too early as far as things happening in the eastern United States, but we should be able to get some clues as to where we're going, say for the latter part of November and the beginning of December over the next 3 or 4 weeks. I think they'll, watch those things, particularly the Pacific side. You want to see if this change now to the positive pattern in the Pacific, the positive Pacific North America Index, which, by the way, is also going to come with a negative East Pacific oscillation, just to throw another thing into the equation. That oscillation has been off the wall positive, and this is why we're so warm here. When that goes negative, and I've said many times, that indicator, that EPO, is more important in my book than the NAO. the EPO is really the one you want to see go negative and stay negative. The NAO can go ahead and do things back and forth. It goes negative, it goes positive, but it's that East Pacific oscillation. The pressures in the North Pacific being higher than normal is far more important for the actions downstream in the Great Lakes and in the eastern part of the United States than the NAO is. So write all those things down. Okay, write all those things down. That pretty much wraps it up. It's just pretty, weather has been quiet, and we took the last 3 days off because there really wasn't going to be much change from day to day. What we talked about on Wednesday came to pass this weekend. So let's this week we'll probably pay a little, pay attention to the long range because of all the changes that are happening. So Michael McGuire, again, thank you very much for the super chat hit. Same for Leon Probitsky, for Steve Lapointe, and of course to Chuck Cardillo. And happy anniversary again to you and your wife, Mary. Joe and I will be back tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern time, and he won't have a television show to watch with his son tomorrow night, so he'll be here for the whole thing. The Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini, your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, New York, 631-957-5106, the phone number, and the website is liholidaylighting.com. Omni True Value Hardware, nearby in West Babylon, New York, 631-756-1125 for the best prices on everything you need to get through the winter, including rock salt, which they have plenty of. The telephone number, as we said, 631-756-1125. The website is omnitruevalue.com. So everybody have a great night. And if you're interested in getting one of these license plate birdhouses, by the way, the daughter of the guy running the booth actually came up with this idea, and she made these bird cages, and it paid for her entire college education. So that was a very entrepreneurial thing that this gentleman's daughter did. This was, again, and I'm not getting anything from this. I just thought it was so interesting. But in case you're interested, Mike's Birdhouses, and the phone number is 404-213-4136. And if anybody wants more info or needs the number or any other information, you can shoot me an email and I will certainly respond. All right. Have a great night, everybody, and we will see you tomorrow. Night, night.